Today, we'll dive into a story filled with passion, betrayal, and the destructive force of uncontrolled obsession. Stay tuned, because later in the video, we'll reveal the magical word for our contest, which could bring you amazing prizes just by commenting below. An inquiry revealed the troubling aspects of her obsessive connection with high school coach Nathan Ellis, which started in the autumn of 2013 at Brookhaven High School. A sequence of occurrences transpired that escalated into jealousy, treachery, and finally, an evening of catastrophic violence. But does charisma give someone the right to cross boundaries? Should charm allow someone to evade responsibility, or does it increase the burden of their actions? His players respected him not only for his abilities, but also for how he genuinely appeared to care about their growth, both on and off the court. Nathan was more than their coach. He was their mentor, someone they could admire. Nathan's private life appeared to be as flawless as his career. He had just wed Hannah, his college sweetheart, in a lovely ceremony on April 14, 2012. Hannah was a kindergarten teacher, recognized across the town for her kind nature and affection for children. They had recently settled into a snug 3-bedroom home on the outskirts of Brookhaven. The house may not have been big, yet it brimmed with potential. Room for a nursery, a garden for a swing set, and a future bursting with the love and warmth that Nathan and Hannah envisioned. For Nathan, the shift to married life was both thrilling and difficult. Managing the pressures of his new position, alongside his dedication to Hannah, demanded more effort than he expected. Hannah, always supportive, motivated him to channel his passion into coaching, reassuring him that they would always make time for one another. On weekends, they dedicated time to embellishing their home and discussing their future aspirations. Hannah began gathering baby names, diligently writing them in a tiny notebook she had beside her bed. Do circumstances justify choices? Some argue yes, but others might see her decisions as inexcusable. Where do you stand? Is Heather a victim of her situation or the architect of her downfall? Let us know in the comments. In contrast, Heather Malone was experiencing an entirely different existence. At the age of 17, she was the leading cheerleader at Brookhaven High School. Her remarkable beauty and vivacious character drew everyone's attention wherever she went. Yet beneath her glowing smile was a girl longing for affection and security. Heather was raised in a dysfunctional household where her parents cared more about their conflicts than about raising their child. Her father abandoned them when she turned 10, and her mother, struggling with alcoholism, hardly could maintain their tiny apartment. Heather had discovered early how to take care of herself. The turmoil at home transformed Heather into a skilled manipulator. She understood how to leverage her allure and charisma to achieve her desires, and she wasn't reluctant to test limits, to break free from the disorder of her own life. Even with her popularity at school, Heather harbored a profound feeling of insecurity. She yearned for someone to look past her surface, someone who would offer her the affection and approval she lacked at home. Nathan turned into that person. It began quite innocently. It was September 2012, and Nathan had only been at Brookhaven High for a couple of months. Heather frequently remained late after cheerleading practice, hanging around the gym to observe the basketball team. Initially, it was merely a harmless infatuation. She appreciated Nathan's confidence, how he earned respect from his players, while also being approachable. To Heather, he was more than a coach. He represented the type of man she envisioned could rescue her from the existence she yearned to escape. For Nathan, the focus from Heather was very pleasing. The word of today is obsession. Use it in the comments to enter our contest. and you might just win an exciting prize. He was adapting to his new positions as a husband and a coach, but the demands of each were beginning to take a toll on him. The late nights devoted to studying game tactics frequently resulted in reduced time with Hannah, who was occupied overseeing her lively classroom of 5-year-olds. When Heather started to compliment him, acknowledging his coaching abilities, or remarking on his leadership, Nathan experienced a sense of affirmation he hadn't known he desired. By October 2012, they were interacting more often. Heather sought opportunities to converse with Nathan after practice, occasionally requesting guidance on school matters or asserting she required assistance with her cheer routines. Nathan, surprised by her focus, but hesitant to be impolite, consistently complied. Their discussions started off cheerful, but gradually, they turned more intimate. Heather discussed her challenges at home, expressing how she frequently felt overlooked and how she yearned for an improved life. Nathan, driven by his inherent inclination to guide and assist, felt a sense of protectiveness towards her. One evening in late October, following an especially tough practice, Nathan remained in his office to complete some paperwork. Heather tapped on the door, stating that she had forgotten her phone at the gym. Upon entering, she expressed her gratitude for his constant kindness towards her. Heather expressed her admiration for him, not only as a coach, but also as an individual. She expressed to him that he was the only grown-up who appeared to genuinely care for her. For Nathan, the moment was emotionally complex. He perceived Heather as a struggling young woman seeking direction. Yet the strength of her words evoked feelings he wasn't prepared to confront. The boundary between teacher and student started to fade, and Nathan, despite his reluctance, allowed it to occur. By November 2012, their encounters had increased in frequency. What began as informal chats in the gym evolved into intimate times in Nathan's office after hours. Heather, encouraged by Nathan's early warmth, started to test limits. She wore more revealing outfits during practices, making sure she attracted his attention. Nathan, struggling with an increasing feeling of guilt, sought to make sense of their exchanges. He reassured himself that he was just acting as a mentor, a pillar of stability in Heather's tumultuous life. However, Heather desired more. She longed for Nathan's focus and became irritated when he aimed to maintain a professional relationship. She started to probe him, staying behind after practice, unintentionally touching him during talks, and making reasons to message him after school hours. Heather understood how to take advantage of Nathan's weaknesses, and she utilized every method available to draw him nearer. By December 2012, their connection had gone over the edge. This is the kind of story that can stir deep emotions. If you find it as gripping as we do, don't forget to share it with 3 friends who love a good mystery. It only takes a moment and helps us bring more stories like this to you. One evening, after a game at home, Nathan discovered he was alone in the gym with Heather. The pressure that had been accumulating between them finally burst in the silence of the vacant gym, with only the soft buzz of the overhead lights. They experienced their initial close moment. Nathan, flooded with a blend of longing and remorse, realized he had committed a grave error. Yet the bond they shared was unmistakable, and Heather had no intention of letting him leave. Their relationship evolved into a well-protected secret. They gathered late at night in Nathan's office or beneath the bleachers, ensuring that no one else was nearby. Heather was diligent in preserving her reputation at school, yet her fixation on Nathan intensified with each day that went by. For Nathan, the relationship turned into a continual source of inner conflict. He cared for his wife and loathed himself for betraying her. Yet, he couldn't find a way to free himself from Heather's hold. By January 2013, The fissures in their hidden truth started to emerge. Heather became more and more possessive, frequently messaging Nathan late at night and insisting on his attention. She would pose insightful questions regarding his marriage, searching for indications that he was dissatisfied with Hannah. Nathan, attempting to save what was left of his conscience, started to withdraw, but Heather wouldn't let him. To her, the relationship wasn't merely a casual encounter. It served as her salvation, a way out of a life she loathed. Heather's fixation hit a peak when she observed Hannah going to more of Nathan's matches. The manner in which he smiled at his wife and the pride he displayed while introducing her to his players filled Heather with jealousy. She couldn't bear the idea of Nathan providing Hannah with the affection and care she thought ought to be hers. The scene was prepared for a clash that would alter their lives permanently. What started as a careless pleasure had turned into a perilous involvement, one that neither Nathan nor Heather could manage. What choices would Heather make moving forward, and how far would she be willing to go to retain Nathan with her? By July 2013, Nathan and Hannah Ellis's life appeared flawless to those looking in. They were a youthful, attractive pair with a bright future ahead. Hannah, the pillar of their relationship, radiated elegance and optimism. Although Nathan worked long hours as a basketball coach, she prioritized attending every game possible, her expanding belly a proud symbol of the life they were creating together. Yet, beneath the smiles and affectionate gestures, Nathan bore a weight that intensified with every day that went by. His relationship with Heather had unraveled, transforming from a careless error into a cause of persistent fear and worry. Heather's fixation had turned unyielding. Her previously playful texts had transformed into urgent messages seeking his focus. She would appear unexpectedly at the gym, waiting for him post-practice, her eyes ablaze with a blend of fury and desire. Heather's life centered completely on Nathan. Her fixation overwhelmed her, driven by the void in her own existence. She had no relatives to rely on, no genuine friends to share her thoughts with. Her academic performance started to decline, and her attendance at cheerleading practice grew inconsistent. Heather's coach became worried, but Heather dismissed the inquiries with ambiguous explanations. Yet, in private, Heather's envy of Hannah had escalated significantly. On August 14, 2013, everything transformed. While a game was taking place at Brookhaven High, Hannah showed up unexpectedly. She donned a flowing dress that scarcely hid her expanding baby bump. Nathan saw her in the stands and couldn't contain the grin that appeared on his face. For him, Hannah represented a guiding light in his intricate and shadowy existence. Heather, positioned on the sidelines in her cheerleading outfit, witnessed the interaction and experienced a wave of intense anger. Heather couldn't understand how Nathan could continue to love his wife after she had jeopardized everything for him. She despised how his face brightened for Hannah, how his eyes stayed focused on her even while he coached the game. That evening, as Hannah went to Nathan to congratulate him following the game, Heather lurked in the shadows, observing them with her jaw clenched and her hands shaking. The revelation of Hannah's pregnancy, shared nonchalantly with a group of players and their families after the match, was the ultimate straw. Heather exited the gym suddenly, banging the door shut as she struggled to hold back tears. What will happen next after Heather's stormy exit? Could this be the breaking point? Tune in to see how this intense drama unfolds. From that instant onward, Heather's mind was filled with a single objective: eliminating Hannah from the scene. Nathan, unaware of the turmoil stirring in Heather's thoughts, resolved it was time to conclude the relationship definitively. On August 20th, 2013, following a late practice session, He summoned Heather to his office. What he meant to be a concluding discussion rapidly escalated into a heated clash. Heather pleaded, threatened, and sobbed, switching between professing her affection for him and warning him of the consequences if he abandoned her. Nathan stood his ground, turning his back on her as her cries reverberated in the vacant gym. By November 1st, 2013, Heather's fixation had escalated to perilous levels. Nathan ceased replying to her messages and did his best to steer clear of her. Her meticulously built realm of influence and dominance was faltering, and she was resolute in her quest to regain the power she sensed slipping away. On that wet afternoon, Heather traveled to the Ellis home. In her shoes, would you confront your rival or walk away? Is it ever justified to fight for what you want this fiercely? Let's ignite a discussion in the comments. She was aware that Nathan wouldn't be at home. He was at the school getting ready for an upcoming tournament. Heather lacked a concrete plan, just the resolve to confront Hannah in person. As she entered the driveway, her thoughts surged with potential scenarios. If she could only speak to Hannah, she might be able to intimidate her into abandoning Nathan, or she could uncover something, anything, that would provide her with an advantage over them. Hannah, always the kind hostess, greeted the door with a cheerful smile. Although it was raining, she wasn't familiar with Heather, yet she could identify her from the cheerleading squad. Heather pretended to be polite, saying she had left her jacket in Nathan's car and needed to inquire about something. Hannah, unaware of any intentions, welcomed her in and provided a glass of water. Heather took it, her gaze flicking around the house as she entered the kitchen. It was at that moment that Heather saw the cup of tea on the counter. Hannah had been sipping it earlier as she cleaned up. The thought hit Heather like a bolt from the blue. She didn't have a concrete plan, but the chance appeared too ideal to let slip away. As Hannah turned away to get the water, Heather discreetly poured a tiny vial of poison she had concealed in her bag into the tea. Her hands shook while she poured the liquid, her heart pounding at the idea of what she was about to undertake. Heather didn't stay for long. She expressed her gratitude to Hannah and departed, her heart racing as she made her way to her car. She reassured herself it was merely enough toxin to upset Hannah, to frighten her into abandoning Nathan. But beneath it all, she craved more. She aimed to remove Hannah from Nathan's life completely. Later that night, Hannah started to feel ill. Initially, it was merely a tedious discomfort in her abdomen. But by midnight, the agony had turned intolerable. Nathan hurried her to the hospital, panic written all over his face. The doctors hurriedly performed their tasks, yet the harm was irreversible. Hannah had experienced a miscarriage, and the child they had hoped for was lost. Nathan was heartbroken, but his sorrow swiftly transformed into doubt. There was something about the timing that seemed wrong. Heather had visited the house earlier that day, uninvited and unexpectedly. The idea troubled him, yet he possessed no evidence. The next day, when he faced Heather, she refuted all accusations, her demeanor icy and steadfast. She cautioned him that he had yet to witness her true capabilities. Nathan was uncertain about how to shield his wife from the intensifying storm, yet he was sure of one fact: Heather would not surrender easily. By January 2014, the lives of Nathan, Hannah, and Heather were already in disarray, while the world around them remained unaware. Heather's fixation had hit its tipping point. Her previously delightful and playful attitude had turned chaotic and unstable. By the age of 18, Heather was entirely engulfed by her relentless longing for Nathan. Her obsession with Nathan transformed him from an individual into an object, a beacon of hope in the tempest of her shattered reality. She experienced betrayal, not just from Nathan's dismissal, but also from Hannah's ongoing involvement in his life, an involvement that represented everything Heather thought would always be out of reach for her. At the same time, Nathan was enduring perpetual anxiety. He had separated himself as much as possible from Heather following the poisoning event, yet he understood internally that she posed a danger. He hadn't revealed to Hannah the complete details of the affair, attempting to protect her from the worst parts, yet the guilt burdened him significantly. Nathan became more reserved and introverted. He immersed himself in coaching, frequently adding extra practices or games to escape confronting the disintegrating aspects of his personal life. Hannah, who was still healing from the loss of their child, recognized the gap, but ascribed it to sorrow. By early January, she started to emotionally rebuild herself, relying on her parents and close friends for support. She devoted her days to readying their house for a new beginning, wishing that spring's arrival could provide a feeling of revitalization. She was resolute in mending her marriage, oblivious to the real extent of Nathan's treachery or the threat hiding in the darkness. Heather, on the other hand, could not let go. For her, the months after the poisoning had been a haze of anger and hopelessness. She dedicated hours to browsing Nathan's social media, scrutinizing each post and picture for indications of joy with Hannah. The image of the couple together ignited her increasing hatred. By January 10, 2014, Heather concluded that if Nathan wasn't hers, he wouldn't belong to anyone else. On the night of January 15, 2014, Heather executed her plan. She understood that Nathan would be gone coaching at an away game, making the house empty apart from Hannah. Equipped with a pistol she had taken from her stepfather months before, Heather headed to the Ellis residence. The area was serene, with the streetlights creating elongated shadows across the suburban yards. She left her car a bit away and walked the remainder of the distance, the chilly air stinging her skin, as she practiced what she would say to Hannah. Entering the house was simpler than Heather expected. The back door was left unlocked, a common oversight in her close-knit, trusting neighborhood. Within, the home was cozy and quiet, a sharp contrast to Heather's tumultuous thoughts. She strode through the living room, her fingertips gliding over the picture frames on the mantel. Every photo of Nathan and Hannah beaming together strengthened her determination. Heather's wait was brief. At about 8:45 p.m., Hannah came back home, her arms loaded with groceries. She was surprised to see Heather in the living room, but her instinctive politeness prevented her from responding harshly. Heather's composed facade quickly shattered into fury as she started blaming Hannah for destroying her life. Hannah felt scared and confused, yet she attempted to talk to Heather, maintaining a calm voice while she slowly retreated toward the kitchen. Heather trailed behind, drawing the gun from her jacket. The appearance of the weapon altered everything. Hannah's terror turned tangible, yet she maintained her poise. Realizing she required assistance, she acted swiftly and grabbed her phone from the counter. Feigning a struggle with it, she successfully dialed 911 and quietly gave her address before Heather understood her intentions. Upon hearing the dispatcher's distant voice on the other end, Heather's panic surged. She took hold of Hannah's arm and yanked her into the living room, shouting at her to take a seat. Hannah obeyed, her heart pounding as she searched for a method to get away. The minutes seemed to stretch into hours as they anticipated the unavoidable arrival of the police. At 9:03 p.m., the air was filled with the sound of sirens. Heather's desperation shifted to rage. She charged Hannah with alerting the police, brandishing the gun wildly as she walked around the room. As the first police vehicle entered the driveway, Heather's unpredictable actions intensified. She discharged a bullet, nicking Hannah's shoulder. The pain was intense and sudden, But Hannah took advantage of the disorder to crawl behind a couch, protecting herself as much as possible. The police, upon hearing the gunshot, acted swiftly. They yelled orders from outside, attempting to reach an agreement with Heather, but she was unyielding. Heather isolated herself in the house, shooting erratically at the officers. Amid the turmoil, one officer was hit and lost his life, a 32-year-old dad of two, whose existence would also be taken by this sorrowful evening. At 9:20 p.m., the standoff peaked. The police burst into the house, their actions quick and deliberate. Heather opened fire on them, her shots erratic and frantic. The officers fired back, hitting Heather several times. She fell to the living room floor, her blood gathering on the hardwood, her obsession and fury snuffed out in a moment. The occurrences on January 15, 2014, stunned the Brookhaven community. Every comment on this story represents a stand against violence born out of desperation. Comment your thoughts below and become part of a community eager to learn and discuss the complexities of the human condition. The news of the homicide circulated rapidly, and within a few hours, Nathan's relationship with Heather came to light. The disclosure ruined Nathan's image. Parents pulled their kids from his team, insisting on his resignation. Despite Nathan's complete cooperation with the investigation, acknowledging his involvement in the circumstances that resulted in the tragedy, the public perceived him as complicit. By February 2014, Nathan stepped down from his role and vanished from the public eye, isolating himself in an undisclosed place to avoid scrutiny. Hannah endured her physical wounds, but found it difficult to heal emotionally. By March 2014, she returned to live with her parents, and soon after filed for divorce. The deceit and pain became overwhelming for her, and she could no longer envision a future alongside Nathan. Her formerly vibrant perspective on life was overshadowed, taken over by the burden of sorrow and treachery. Heather's narrative transformed into a warning story. The media depicted her as a troubled young woman, a casualty of her situation, but also an instigator of horrific violence. Discussions surrounding mental health, responsibility, and the morality of teacher-student relationships continued vigorously. Yet for those familiar with her, Heather stood as a representation of how unrestrained obsession and hopelessness could lead to catastrophe. The Ellis residence, previously brimming with hope and potential, remained vacant for months. The community ultimately resumed its normal activities, yet the recollection of that evening persisted, a haunting reminder of how lives could fall apart due to love, betrayal, and obsession. This poignant chapter in the lives of Nathan, Hannah, and Heather would always stand as proof of the destructive effects of hidden truths and uncontrolled feelings. The sorrowful occurrences in Brookhaven had a profound effect on all those affected. It was a tale of passion, treachery, and the perilous outcomes of unrestrained fixation. A once bright future was extinguished, a family was shattered, and a tranquil town was irrevocably altered by the hidden truths and deceptions lying beneath. And if you thought this story was gripping, wait until you hear about a case where a housewife's hidden relationship with her cousin's teenage son takes a sinister twist. Subscribe and hit that bell icon to be the first to see when the video drops. Sharing stories like Heather's gives us the chance to delve deeper into the human psyche. If you found the video insightful, please share it with 3 people who have a passion for thrilling stories and engaging discussions. Remember, subscribing is just a click away, free, and means the world to us. Let's keep these stories alive together.